All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick on the Power. So I want to do my full recap of the 2018 Mr. Olympia, the finals and results. So the top five was a pretty interesting top five this year. So it wasn't really exactly what everybody expected. And of course, we had a new champion this year being Shawn Rhoden. So this Olympia was an interesting one. We had two new Mr. Olympias, both in the men's physique category and in men's open, both of which Hani Rambod's guys were both defending Mr. Olympias, Phil Heath and Jeremy Buendia. Both lost their title this year, so two very big upsets at the Olympia, making for a very interesting show. So getting to the top five in men's open bodybuilding, you had Brandon Curry coming in fifth. I think a lot of people were surprised that he placed that highly, which means Big Ramy most likely came in sixth, and Dexter Jackson was, in fact, outside of the top six this year. So I will say at the night show, at the finals on Saturday night, Big Ramy looked significantly improved compared to how he looked at the prejudging. He looked a lot drier, a lot harder. He had more detail and separation. So I actually thought Big Ramy was going to place higher after seeing the photos from the night show, but that wasn't the case. Brandon Curry did enough and looked good enough to crack that top five. Coming in fourth was William Bonac. Now, William Bonac looked good this year. I don't think he was as sharp as he was last year. I don't think he was as sharp as he was at the Arnold Classic either. So I think that pretty much explains how Roy Winkler took the edge over him this year. Just William Bonac is one of those guys, he's got so much muscle and he's got kind of a blocky physique that really for him to be a really dangerous guy, Bonac needs to come in with conditioning, razor sharp conditioning on 110% to be a top threat like he was last year. And he was still very good. His conditioning was still very good. It just wasn't as sharp as it was. And that allowed Roy Winkler to sneak up and have arguably the greatest year of his career this year, winning the Arnold Classic Australia earlier in 2018 and picking up his best Olympia placing ever. I predicted Roy would be in fourth. I didn't think he would be in third, and that's just a tremendous accomplishment for Rolly. It's been a long time coming. Very happy to see it. Rolly Winkler is a guy. He also won the Fans' Choice Award, so I guess he was the favorite of the show, and honestly, he did look phenomenal. So Rolly Winkler, extremely impressive showing here at the Mr. Olympia this year. Very proud of Rolly Winkler. So let's go ahead and get into 1 and 2 here. So this is the interesting part. So Phil Heath and Shawn Rhoden. So at prejudging, I think it was pretty clear that Phil Heath was off at prejudging. Everybody kind of made that assumption pretty quickly based on how he was looking. And Shawn Rhoden brought arguably the best package he's ever brought at any point in his career. I mean, the conditioning that Shawn brought was mind-blowing. I don't think anybody saw that coming. Shawn wasn't really on anybody's radar this year as being a 1 or 2 guy, including myself. I did not have Shawn in that top 3 this year, but when he showed up at prejudging, I knew I was going to be eating my words because Shawn Rhoden looked incredible this year. He looked absolutely amazing. I can't say it enough how good his conditioning was. The conditioning throughout his legs, his hamstrings, his glutes, everything about him was just 100% on. And Phil Heath came in off, and Phil Heath left the door wide open for a guy like Shawn to come in with that crazy conditioning and be able to take that title. So I think the bigger part of Shawn Rhoden winning was Phil leaving the door open, because back in 2016, I feel like the gap between Shawn and Phil was much more than it was this year. When Shawn took second to Phil, I thought there was a pretty big distance between 1 and 2 back then. I think Phil took the easy win back then, but I think this year it was much, much closer. Shawn looked much better, and Phil looked much worse than their previous encounter back in 2016. So I think what we saw here in both the prejudging and the night show was gradually during the course of the show, Phil Heath started to fade in both portions of the show. So during prejudging, during the posing, as the posing went on, Phil Heath started to breathe heavier and heavier. He started to be losing control of his gut more and more all throughout the prejudging. His breathing became heavier at the night show as well, struggling to hit the abs and thighs in both the prejudging and night show. You could just clearly tell Phil was struggling up on stage. Something just looked off with the way that Phil was carrying himself on stage. And it looked like he knew at the night show that he had lost. I mean, when he came out on stage and they were doing the pose down and the call outs, Phil Heath just had this look on his face like he knew he hadn't won. He knew that Shawn Rhoden had it. And Shawn Rhoden looked extremely confident throughout the entire course of the night show. And Phil Heath just kind of looking down, not really making eye contact with anybody. I think Phil knew that Shawn had him beat. I think Phil knew he was off and Shawn was on. So in the past, we've talked about Shawn versus Phil, the back shots, how Phil always beat Shawn in the back. And I think that was still the case this year. I think in the back double bicep, the back lat spread, Phil Heath still took Shawn in those poses, but it wasn't as close as it was in 2016. I think Shawn's conditioning in the lower body in those back shots was still extremely good. And I think Shawn took him in the front double bicep, the front lat spread, the side chest, arguably the most muscular from the conditioning standpoint, which is usually Phil's money shot. But I think you could make an argument for Sean in that pose as well. The side tricep was one of the main poses that I think Phil really destroyed Sean in, though, because people were acting like Sean just obliterated Phil, and I don't think that was the case. Phil still had much better arms than Sean, much better delts than Sean, much better back than Sean. But the midsection just wasn't there. It wasn't good. The conditioning just wasn't there. It wasn't good. And Sean really capitalized on that opportunity and picked up the win here. Now, personally, I would like to see Phil come back in 2019 and try to get the title back and try to get number 8. I mean, 7 Olympias, so close to tying the record. It's got to be very discouraging. And when his girlfriend put up that post on Instagram saying that Phil's done competing, it really surprised me because I thought Phil would kind of have a fire lit under him to come back and get his title back. But maybe we won't see Phil versus Sean again next year. And I bet this is a situation where Kai Green is probably kicking himself that he didn't compete, because I think Phil, he did leave the door wide open for someone to come in and for there to be a new champion this year. I think this was the year that Kai Green really should have competed, and I'm sure Kai Green is regretting not showing up here. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching the video, and please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.